Howdy, 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 my name is Anashi Sasuke, and welcome back to the Warhammer 40K Wiki. Today we're going to be trying to finish up reading about the Tau. I meant to do this a couple of weeks ago, but I have since been to the Warhammer store for my one time a year I get to do that, and it made me interested in some other stuff, but first I gotta finish reading about the Tau. If I do read about the other stuff, I'm going to have to rename this playlist to be just Warhammer playlist and not specifically 40k anymore, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, the general principles of Tau warfare. Ground warfare is carried out almost exclusively by the Firecast, while the Aircast is responsible for aerial and space combat and providing transport between star systems for the Firecast. Firecast military forces are known as cadres, and are similar in size and battlefield role to an Astra Militarum company. In space, Tau fleets are manned by the Aircast, which maintains both the military starships of the Tau Protection Fleet, called the Corvatra in the Tau lexicon, as well as the state-owned armed merchant vessels of the Tau Merchant Fleet. The Protection Fleet can include both Tau starships as well as those of the Xenos auxiliaries who are part of the Tau Empire and accept the greater good, such as Kroot war spheres and the powerful vessels of the Leagues of Votan Prospect, identified as the Demiurge. Hunter cadres are primarily made up of Tau from the same planetary sept. Auxiliary forces are drawn from the alien member species within the Tau Empire, and Hunter cadres can include Kroot warriors, Vespid stingwings, and human Guevesa, amongst other intelligent xenospecies. The Tau prefer long-range combat over close melee, disdaining the latter and viewing it as primitive and barbaric. A fire warrior's primary weapon is the pulse rifle, which can be switched for a pulse carbine. A pulse rifle fires energetic particles which quickly break down and are projected as a pulse of superheated plasma. The pulse carbines, also carried by fire warrior teams, sacrifice range for portability, but incorporates a underslung photon grenade launcher. And here's some pictures of the things. Not sure why it pulses like that. Photon grenades are powerful defensive weapons that not only release a powerful burst of light, but also a sonic shockwave that can temporarily stun the target. As the Tau Empire integrates more and more alien races, they use whatever unique abilities they possess in supplementing Tau tactics. Often, small alien squads can be used as bait to draw enemy fire, though it is important to note that bait squads are not considered expendable, but rather dependent on the effectiveness of their cover fire. If forces ever do become engaged in close melee combat, they can call on their cannibalistic allies, the Kroot. The Kroot are expert jungle fighters who appear deceptively slender. Unit organization. A cadre, or Kaui, in the Tau lexicon, is the basic organizational unit of the Firecast, the ground military forces of the Tau Empire. Cadres are, in turn, made up of a variable number of units similar in size to squads, known among the Tau as a team, which has its own link for some reason. There are many types of Tau cadre, but by far the most common one is the versatile Hunter cadre. It is a combined arms group, fielding fire warrior infantry, auxiliary infantry, battlesuits, and anti-gravitic gunships together under the leadership of a commander. Most cadres are standing formations, although their exact structure includes some variation depending on the strategic or tactical needs of their commander. There are many alternative kinds of cadre within the Firecast, with several more specialist formations optimized for specific battlefield roles. The Retaliation cadre, for example, groups teams of battlesuits, particularly stealth suits, into a single force, ideal for rapid insertion drops and counter-assault. Meanwhile, the Infiltration cadre is used for reconnaissance in force, its Pathfinder sniper drone teams and piranhas, engaging the foe with guerrilla tactics while calling down strikes on key strategic targets. A contingent, or Teove, is a grouping of cadres similar in size to an Astra Militarum regiment, normally 3 to 6 in number and assembled to prosecute a specific battle or achieve a particular objective. Such large forces will always include at least one ethereal, who is there to observe proceedings and offer guidance to the commander. The ethereal's role is vital, for contingents represent the marshaled military might of the Tau Empire and must be wielded with care. Only the vast star system conquering units known as coalitions, or Shanal, are larger and more powerful. Firecast armed forces are deployed to meet to protect holdings or to destroy those that oppose the Tau Empire's enlightenment. In order to achieve success with their rapid strikes and ambushing firefights, Tau forces must be flexible and ready to work together. If a Firecast mantra that It is a Firecast mantra that every unit must operate in conjunction to fulfill the dictates of the greater good. Teams, Larua. The smallest standard unit in the Tau's military Firecast is known as a team, equivalent to an Astra Militarum squad. The most commonly deployed is the Fire Warrior team, the backbone of most Tau armies, and the basic infantry unit. Each team of Fire Warriors consists of between 6 and 12 soldiers. All members come from the same sept and most likely have gone through Firecast Academy together. All teams have a team leader, although they can only earn the higher rank of Shisui after extensive battlefield experience. Teams that serve together in the field often bond themselves through rituals, of which the most famous is the Talisera, which roughly translates to a type of communion or binding oath. Those who have sworn such an oath may address each other by their individual names and have vowed to support one another into death. It's not uncommon for teams to progress together as well. Veteran Fire Warrior teams may even earn promotion to Shisui together. Each might serve for a time as a squad leader for a different Fire Team Warrior before the survivors are reunited as a crisis team. Cadres. It's a collection of teams joined under a single commander and is equivalent in size to an Astra Militarum company. There are many types of cadre, but by far the most common one is the versatile Hunter Cadre. It is a combined arms group fielding infantry, battlesuits, and gunships together. A cadre is comparable in size and power, if not composition, to what the Astra Militarum might call a company. I'm not sure why y'all felt like you had to say that twice, but okay. Hunter cadres are a standing formation, although their exact structure is variable, subject to change due to tactical situation on the ground, the quarry they are hunting, the available reinforcements, or a commander's favorite mode of attack. The core of most Hunter cadres is its Fire Warriors and other auxiliary infantry such as Kroot Carnivores or Vespid Stingwings, but these can be supported in a number of ways. Pathfinders scout ahead and mark prospective targets, elite battlesuits provide hard-hitting strike teams, sniper drone teams pick off the foe's greatest threats, and hammerhead gunships use their deadly armaments to blast enemy armor or break up mass infantry attacks. The doctrine of Tau battle tactics is all about the efficient coordination of different groups. From the infantry to the battlesuits, the gunships to the aircraft, all must work as one to defeat the foe. A Hunter cadre is fully integrated at the tactical level, so that's all of its teams are considered to be part of the same fighting unit. There are a number of different cadres in addition to the Hunter variety, although they tend to be smaller in size and more optimized for individual roles. There are rapid insertion forces, made exclusively of fast-striking battlesuit teams, infiltration cadres of pathfinders and stealth teams, and auxiliary reserve cadres, battle groups made entirely of allied alien warriors like the Kroot, Vespids, and Guevesa. A particularly formidable group is the Armored Interdiction Cadre, a force composed entirely of Hammerhead and Skyray gunships. Its heavy firepower is used to counter enemy tanks and is capable of toppling even the mightiest targets. During the Hive Fleet Gorgon invasion, Armored Interdiction cadres blunted the Tyrannid Bio-Titan Spearhead, pitting shoals or squadrons of hammerheads against towering Hierophants, flanked by tank-sized Hierodules. Contingent, TOV. A contingent is a grouping of several cadres, normally 3 to 6 in number, equivalent to an Astra Militarum regiment. Are you going to say that twice too? The most senior Tau commander is designated as a contingent commander, and their own cadre is nominated as a headquarters guard. An ethereal might be present in such a force at cadre level, but there is always at least one present when a contingent is formed. Ethereals often stay at the headquarters position, as it is a hub for incoming reports and their counsel can best be received there. Should an ethereal wish a closer observation of a situation, they will attach to or even assume leadership over a given cadre. Unlike a cadre, a contingent is not a permanent formation, though efforts are made to preserve contingents that have served efficiently together through prolonged campaigns. Once objectives are achieved, such as a breakthrough of enemy lines or the elimination of a foe, the contingent is dissolved or reformed into another arrangement. Commune, also a cabal. Sometimes also translated into Low Gothic as a battle, a commune is a temporary grouping of contingents and the highest level of Firecast military organization thus far committed in the field by the Tau Empire. Communes are often formed by contingents from different septs, and although rarely seen before the Damocles Gulf Crusade, they are now more regularly formed, most famously during the solar decade-long campaign against the Orcs, known as the Great War of Confederation. Only the combined forces of many septs could have hoped to stop the gargantuan Orc Wog that threatened the Empire. Commands: Uasho and Coalition Shanal. A command is the term used for all the forces of a single caste in a given location, usually on a planet or in a star system. For instance, all the Firecast members on the world of Nimbosa were part of Firecast Command Nimbosa, while all Aircast formations were part of the Aircast Command Nimbosa. The largest unit of Tau military organization is created when the 4 commands that together comprise the members of all 4 Tau castes present in a given location are drawn together into a strategic organization referred to as a coalition, effectively the size of an Astra Militarum army or army group. A coalition is presided over by a specially assigned ethereal council. Types of cadres. Below is an example of a Tau Firecast Hunter contingent, which is a combined arms unit making use of many different types of cadres. We got Command, Hunter, Optimized Stealth, Fire Support, Auxiliary, Infiltration Cadre, Heavy Retribution Cadre, Air Support, and other cadre types. Just linger on that a little bit longer so people can get a good look at it. Okay. I'm not reading it again because I literally just read all of that, and then they gave it to me as a box. Tau Combat Doctrine. Tau warfare is carried out almost exclusively by the Firecast, with support from the Aircast in the form of transport and air support. The Tau draw their tactics from their ancient methods of hunting across the plains of Tau. Each force is usually drawn from the same sept and is called a hunter cadre. We know this, we literally just we just read that. The Tau prefer to carefully plan their assaults and tend to only fight after coordinating their troops and weapons for the mission at hand. The Tau prefer to fight offensively, concerned more with the quick destruction of an enemy force than the taking and holding of ground. If a base is attacked, the Tau will usually evacuate, dismantle all important technology, and return at a later time to retake it. The 2 primary tactics are the Mont Ka, Killing Blow, and Kaoyan, Patient Hunter. The Mont Ka is a carefully planned attack designed to wipe out critical enemy defenses or units in a single well-placed strike. Once the strongest points of enemy resistance are crushed, the remainder of the force can generally be finished off easily. The Kaoyan is essentially an ambush, where the enemy is drawn by use of a lure into a carefully prepared killing zone. The Mont Ka is generally known to utilize more mobile support and vehicles, whilst Kaoyan relies more on advanced infantry tactics and quick attacks. As Tau forces generally prefer range combat when they they always use non-Tau alien auxiliaries like the Kroot for melee support. One commonly used tactic is when a squad of fire warriors stands in front of the task force, making use of the superior range of their weapons to soften up enemy formations. A squad of Kroot carnivores waits behind the fire warriors. I'm not sure why that's a sentence by itself. When enemy units charge to engage the Tau in melee, the carnivores leap in front of the fire warriors to give them time to retreat to a safe firing position. Now we got the member species. Each intelligent alien species within the Tau Empire has a unique and different culture which contributes to the greater good in its own way. However, all of the Tau Empire's member species hold to their common belief in the greater good that binds them all together, despite their myriad cultural and physical differences. So first we have the Tau, which we have already read about the Tau, and I'm not reading that. The whole thing is about the Tau. We don't need to read that. The Kroot society is divided into tribes, known as kindreds. Each kindred is an extended family group of Kroot and is led by a shaper, one Kroot with an intuitive understanding of the DNA absorption and adaptation process all Kroot possess, and responsible for guiding the evolution of their kindred. The shaper, upon identifying a beneficial genetic trait, will instruct his kindred to hunt and consume that animal, and then control the breeding of the kindred to ensure that the offspring are born with the selected trait. Often, kindreds will band together and their respective shapers will form a council, of which the most influential kindred shaper will be made leader of the entire group. On rare occasions, a chief will unite a larger number of kindreds underneath him. So the Kroot kind of sound like Tyranids, but slower? Kroot dwell in warm, temperate conditions on the worlds they inhabit, and construct large tree houses from animal hides bound together by regurgitated dead wood. Some kindreds prefer to reside in the ruins of the Imperium's hive cities on former human worlds conquered by the Tau Empire. The consumption of flesh is one of the key tenets of Kroot spirituality, as it is believed that the consumption of prey imparts the spirit of that prey to the Kroot, which is then passed on to the Kroot's children. This is the average Kroot's understanding of their species' biological ability to undergo rapid evolution through the absorption of other species' DNA, with the belief in spirit as a substitute for genetic absorption. As part of this belief system, the Kroot believe that when a warrior dies, their spirit should be kept safe by the kindred. They will consider it their responsibility to consume the bodies of their dead foes, along with their own fallen dead and elders. As one might expect, this custom is not viewed as an honor by the human warriors of the Imperium, and the Kroot are instead considered cannibalistic savages. The Vespid are an insectoid alien race allied to the Tau who are native to the benighted gas world of Vespid. I keep thinking Vespoids every time I hear this said, and they do look kind of similar to the armor you get from fighting Vespoids in Monster Hunter. Could be a reference then. Vespid warriors, called Stingwings, form tactical units referred to as strains. Each strain is led by an officer called a strain leader. Tau watercast cadres establish contact, yet were unable at first to communicate with the species. This was not a mundane matter of vocalization or the understanding of the language, for the Vespids have an utterly alien mindset. Initially, the Tau were not only unable to communicate, but incapable of getting the Vespids to even register that they were fellow sentients. As a result, little progress could be made beyond crystal trade agreements so that the Tau could access the insectoid's advanced crystal-based technologies. The matter was eventually resolved at the command of the Ethereal Caste, who issued instructions for the construction of an interface device that forged a connection between the two species and facilitated communication. The moment the device was employed, the Vespid not only registered the Tau as fellow sentients, they instantly understood the concept of the greater good and their place within it. By gifting senior Vespids with communion helms fitted with the interface device, the Tau were able to communicate with the species at large. The will of the Tau Ethereals is disseminated to those Vespid under the command of these strain leaders, and they become able to decipher their role as benefits the greater good. Needless to say, certain factions within the Inquisition would very much like to learn more about the workings of this communion helm device, believing that it may actually be controlling the Vespid to some extent. Because the Vespid language is so complex, presumably because of their complex mouth parts, and only the strain leaders are given the technological apparatus required to translate their language to their Tau allies, Vespid strains are very close-knit, and the Tau military relies heavily on strain leaders to help both sides coordinate. Stingwing strains are highly sought after in Tau hunter cadres because of their high level of maneuverability. They are often used by Tau commanders alongside XV-8 crisis battlesuits or in scouting roles by backing up Tau pathfinders. In the Tau lexicon, the Vespids are referred to as Malcor, which comes from the Tau words mal, meaning insect, and cor, meaning air, so they just call them air bugs. Humans, Gwevesa. The Tau Empire hosts a growing population of humans, known in the Tau lexicon as Gwevesa, who were once a part of the Imperium. I almost said Inquirium. Ranging from ideological defectors who hate the brutality and corruption of the Imperial government, to captured Imperial guardsmen and their children who have known no other life than that among the Tau, they have been fully incorporated into the Empire. While the humans from recently conquered worlds are usually bitter at their defeat by Xenos, they do often have Tau supporters among them from the start, and the number of these Tau sympathizers only grows larger as they realize the manifest economic benefits that the advanced technology of the Tau Empire can provide. For the most part, the Gwevesa are content and treated well, and are even allowed to continue the worship of the God Emperor, though the Tau water caste moves subtly among them to discourage this religion and replace it with the reverence of the greater good. Then that doesn't really sound like they're allowed to continue the worship of the God Emperor if they have the water caste making them not do it. Other member allied species. So we got the Nikasar, which are highly psychic Ursinoid race, which I believe means they are bear people. The Demiurge, which are the Leagues of Votan, which I believe means they are dwarves. The Terrellians, which I've never heard of, but it says they're dog-like aliens. The Galags are frog aliens. The Geatrix are ethereal aliens skilled in void-faring. The Moralian are auxiliaries that employ their death sworn in service of the Tau. Ranghan is a race which has accepted the greater good. The Herenians are a species that often deploy light infantry auxiliaries that aid the military. The Paktrun were the very first race to join the Tau, but went extinct within a few generations due to a plague. The Tau settled their homeworld and turned it into the sept world of Borkan. And the Nagi are a race of highly intelligent worms who have mind control abilities from the world of Shagalud, or Shagalud, Shagalagadaga. Many serve as advisors to the Ethereals. Member species homeworlds. Aduman was the homeworld of the Galags. Tau is Tau. Pekt is the homeworld of the Kroot, and Vespid is the homeworld of the Vespid. Spheres of expansion. The rise of the Tau can be seen to develop through 5 distinct phases, periods of intense growth known to the Tau as spheres of expansion. Each of these waves of interstellar colonization is marked by a long buildup of resources, after which continual waves of exploratory missions are launched, followed, where needed, by military campaigns to solidify territorial gains. Once a colony transforms itself into a stable settlement, it then serves as a jumping-off point for the next expansion. By the end of the millennia-long First Sphere expansion, as it later came to be called, the Tau Empire had unfurled across the heavens and consisted of 8 fully settled and exploited star systems known as septs. Named after its primary, or sept world, a sept can include any number of additionally colonized planets or moons in the same system, as well as other holdings such as listening posts, sensor fields, shield satellites, orbital cities, fortress stations, and mining operations. Everything is connected, both by a series of void stations and a massive net of communications and sensor relays strung between major locations within the system. Although it might take many generations to establish itself, each Tau sept is unique, with its own cultural nuances and varying proportions of the different castes and non-Tau alien populations. Tau septs, each sept, as a fully settled star system is known, has its own unique cultural identity but remains wholly integrated within the greater culture. This cultural identity seems to mainly derive from which caste is more numerous and influential in the given sept. Currently, there are over 20 fully developed septs within the Tau Empire. Each sept has its own icon or badge, which serves as a national identifier of sorts for other Tau within the Empire. The first sphere septs. Okay, so there was Ton, Dianoi, Borkan, Dalyith, Falshia, Viorla, and Sasia for the first expansion. And then there was the second expansion, which began in the year 18 of the 39th millennia, I guess, under the orders of Ethereal Supreme Anwei of the Whispered Wisdom. With new advances in propulsion technology and an already established interstellar empire, the second phase was marked by more contact with aliens and larger wars. Around 742 of the 41st, the Tau Empire first came into conflict with the xenophobic Human Imperium, which launched the Damocles Gulf Crusade in order to keep the expansion into Imperial-controlled space in check. The retreat of Imperial forces from Tau space marked the end of the Second Sphere expansion. Of note, there are septs established by the Fire Caste Commander Farsight during this period. So there's Autal, Endras, Kelshan, Elsier, Tashvar, Vashya, and Teolku. Okay, and here's all their badges or whatever. The third expansion seps was begun in 977-997 of the 41st on the word of the Ethereal Supreme Anva. This Fire Caste Commander Shadow Sun was placed in command of the expansion and secured at least 2 new septs for the Tau Empire. During the Zeist campaign of circa 999 41st, Imperial Space Marine forces counterattacked against the third expansion, seemingly drawing it to a halt. However, by this time, the Empire had grown to 133% of its size prior to 997, largely as a result of the Imperium's distraction during the 13th Black Crusade and its aftermath, circa 999 41st. After the withdrawal of Imperial forces from the campaign, the third expansion continued into it ended following the disastrous Second Agrellan campaign of 999-41st, and increased resistance from the Imperium, which led to the assassination of the Ethereal Supreme on Va. Given the stated size increase of the Tau Empire during this early period, the Third Sphere includes many more septs currently unknown to Imperial scholars. Recognized septs settled during the Third expansion include Simyen, Phyrios, Mugaloth Bay, which is just a whole thing, apparently, and it doesn't have its own symbol. It was formerly the Imperial Hive world known as Agrellan, that was the gateway to the Dovar system. It was the site of a famous Tau victory at the Battle of Mugaloth Bay, a victory won by both Commander Shadowsun and Ethereal Supreme on Va, which had marked the high point of the third expansion. After this victory, the Bay was well on its way to being established as a full-fledged sept. However, shortly after the Perfectia campaign, the Imperium launched a major counterattack against the Bay, determined to reclaim it. In the end, the Tau managed to resist, but the Imperium subjected the planet to an exterminatus action and destroyed it. A small minority of the Bay's Tau population managed to survive the planetary firestorm unleashed by the exterminatus, thanks to an energy shield dome that was erected by the Earth caste around a single Tau city, Lavashtu. Their survivors were faced with the unsettling truth that they might never be able to travel back to the Tau Empire, as their world was now surrounded by Imperial forces. The Bay ultimately had to be abandoned as the entire Damocles Gulf was set ablaze by the Imperial counteroffensive, which effectively separated Imperial space from the Tau Empire. Surviving elements of Mugaloth Bay then attempted to flee to the nearby Farsight enclaves, but were set upon by Commander Surestrike on the order of the Ethereals, who were determined that the Farsight enclave should not see their strength grow. Surestrike managed to destroy most of the rebel Tau, but some still managed to escape. Commander Surestrike on order of the Ethereals, so that there were Tau that didn't want to see the Farsight enclaves grow? Okay. Other Tau worlds and settlements. Since the Tau first left the atmosphere of their birth world, their empire has grown, spreading across the stars into 3 distinct phases known as spheres of expansion, which we just read about that. In addition to that, they're rife with all manners of spatial phenomena, and Tau made orbital structures, fortress stations, orbital cities, lesser void stations, and important alien homeworlds. There are also more sparsely populated Tau colonies that are not accepted into the Empire as full septs. Only a few names of such Tau colonies are known to the Imperium. So there's Arkunasha, which has a really long thing, but I see that an exterminatus happened. It says, theories abounded throughout the Earth cast about the planet-wide catastrophe that had torn everything upon the planet's surface apart. Though the Tau had no idea what might have caused Arkunasha's spectacular death or who the inhabitants might have been, they had taken their first glimpse of the world-destroying power of the Imperium's exterminatus actions. So they had settled it during their second expansion, but it got exterminatus when they weren't looking. Dalyth, before the coming of the Tau, wasn't this one of the ones that was in one of these casts? Yeah. So why are these worlds in the categories for things that are not in septs when they were just said to be in septs? As Tau settled, Hosarn was evacuated as the Hive Fleet Gorgon approached, but the evacuation fleet was ambushed by the Hive Fleet's bioships and slaughtered. Islasu is the watery homeworld of the Greet. Kaimais was invaded by Tyranids. Gorgon, a hidden Necron fleet emerged from the dead moon and destroyed the outnumbered Tyranid bioships, but they continued to land on Kamais and eradicate the planet's population to retake the world for the Necron's own. Korvatra, which is a link and bolded protection fleet and orbital cities. Okay, so every sept has dozens of major docks for the protection fleet, but in addition to these immense void stations, many have also developed orbital cities. They can be moved to provide stable jumping-off points for large research endeavors, military campaigns, or major colonization efforts. Melik just says nothing. There's Red Sun Systems. Shadrag was invaded by Tyranids. Tyros was recently settled during the third sphere of expansion. It was an imperial world that was willingly annexed by the Tau after opening commercial relations with the Xenos Empire. The resulting Imperial attempt to retake the world was defeated by the Tau during what became known as the Taros Campaign. Fortress stations, and the Zone of Silence, a devastated region where Hive Fleet Gorgon left behind many barren planets scoured of all life forms. Non-Tau worlds. Why do we... Okay, so that's where the crew come from. A site of a secret listening post was part of the Raksh system that was home to the Rakshasi wealth web before the entire star system was consumed by Gorgon. Shagalud is the homeworld of the Nagi, and Vespid is the homeworld of the Vespids. It's a gas giant. Artifact worlds. They are located within the borders of the Empire. As the name indicates, ancient artifacts of unknown origin have been discovered on these planets. It is not known if these worlds possess established Tau colonies. There's Arthas Moloch, which is as gray and desolate as a tomb. Its surface is jumbled with thousands of tumble-down shrines and strange faceless statues that predate any of the human colony worlds of the Imperium. The whole world's surface is cracked and broken, giving the sense that the planet itself died long ago. An impression that is reinforced by the fact that not a single green shoot or patch of moss can be found anywhere on its surface. Not a single living soul makes a home there, though the plaster walls of the planet's tombs bear the dark brown smears of bloodshed, and ghostly shadows have been burnt into the walls wherever the ruins cluster close together. Though the world is barren as a bone, if one possessed of psychic abilities were to behold it with the witch sight, it would shine like a gold mine in firelight. This shrine holds peppered with artifacts of ancient and mysterious origin, each a priceless wonder left discarded in the dust. Arthas Moloch is also known as a dead world to the Imperium, and it is where Commander Farsight discovered the Dawnblade. Q-15 and Landfall. The Farsight Enclaves. Although not part of the Tau Empire, this breakaway Tau faction led by Commander Farsight is known to have settled beyond the region known as the Damocles Gulf and is named the Farsight Enclaves. These enclaves still believe in the Talva, the philosophy of the greater good, but operate without the guidance of the Ethereals. The exact name of these Firecast-led septs are unknown to the wider Tau Empire, as the armed forces stations defending them have proven effective at destroying any probe sent to the enclaves. When sighted generations later, these forces and fleets bore markings similar in design to those used by the Tau Empire, but in colors and patterns never sanctioned by the Ethereals. Like any distant Tau colony, much of the war gear, support equipment, and armor used by those within the Farsight Enclaves is slightly dated. The equipment most prevalent at the time of Commander Farsight's disappearance several Terran centuries ago. There has been, however, unsettling evidence of classified technology and recent Tau prototypes present within the Farsight Enclaves. Time will tell whether this is the result of spycraft, theft, or defectors from the Tau Empire who have been aiding those within the Farsight's domain. Forces of the Tau Empire. Okay, so we just read about the vast majority of that. Okay, close that. Notable Tau. Why is there notable Tau? Notable Tau. Okay. So we've reached the end of the stuff about them, but there's things about how they're used in the game. In the tabletop miniatures game, the Tau are a powerful ranged enemy, or army. An effective tactic is to engage them at the maximum range of Tau at weaponry, which typically has longer ranges and greater firepower than the equivalent weapons of other armies. As such, the Tau have weaker close combat abilities. Thus, many Tau tactics involve staying at a distance to wipe out the enemy or to redeploy swiftly to further engage the opponent at range. A more prevalent tactic among Tau veterans is the Mecha Tau approach, which utilizes the inherent mobility and speed of Tau vehicles and battlesuits to confuse and overwhelm the enemy by engaging them at all levels of the battlefield. So if there's one thing I've learned from reading these two paragraphs and also the whole rest of the wiki, it's that if you're playing as the Tau at tabletop and your opponent plays Tyranids, probably don't fight them. Just, that's what it sounds like to me. And I don't feel like I need to read the rest of this because I don't want to actually use the Tau. I just wanted to find out why text-to-speech had such a visceral hatred for the Tau. And it sounds like the answer is just humanity going to humanity, I guess. So, that about does it for reading about the Tau. I'm not sure which thing I want to read about next in the 40K universe. I found out from the guy running the Warhammer store in Connecticut that The Warhammer Fantasy story has way more information about the Chaos Gods than 40k does. But like I said, if I'm going to lean into that, then I'm going to have to rename the playlist to just being Warhammer and not Warhammer 40k specifically. And I'll also have to go find a wiki that's going to tell me about that stuff. So, at some point, I'll decide whether or not I want to do that. I do still need to read about Nurgle and Khorne. Because I've already... And Tzeentch. So I need to learn about Nurgle, Khorne, and Tzeentch. I've already learned about Slaanesh as far as Chaos Gods go. And I guess also the Emperor. Because I haven't read about the Emperor yet. I'm still undecided if I want to read about the Emperor before or after the Horus Heresy. Because I know the Horus Heresy is going to take a while. Because I've got like the first 4 books of that. But I was told there's like 50 or something. Somewhere between 50 and 70 I was told. Which, oof. But anyway. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe would be groovy. If you didn't, you'll need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads. And I'll see y'all on whatever the next thing I cover happens to be. Later.